right, man. So it looked like we was having some technical difficulties, but we back now. So back to the get-go. First topic that we got is about the Apple Wallet. I think I introduced that. I know you were introducing a little bit of it.
Yeah, I did. I did all the articles, matter of
All
fact.
right. But yeah, the first topic that we got is about the Apple Wallet getting its verifiable COVID-19 vaccination cards, or getting verifiable the whole COVID-19 vaccination cards. Basically, they're making it so that the Google Wallet app or the Apple Wallet app. I think there's a Google Wallet app as well, but the Apple Wallet app already had the functionality to do like cards in general. They've been pushing this agenda for a while with the gift cards, wallets, regular debit cards, credit cards, stuff like that. You can put your passports in here. If you got like airplane trips coming, you can put all that stuff into the system, into this Google Wallet. But now, because it's been working so well for a number of years, they're also allowing for the COVID-19 vaccination cards to actually just become a part of the wallet as well. I'm gonna just get your 411 because I already said it a little bit when I was speaking about the title. What do you think about this?
I think so. What you started off on the right foot saying that they've been doing this whole card thing for some time. If you ask me, conspiracy guy, I feel like this been the case. They've been planning this. First off, this whole COVID stuff. Now I know it's risque what I'm gonna say, but this is how I look at it. A lot of this stuff has been schemed and plotted out. You feel what I'm saying? Now we got this whole thing. We all know, and that's why I know we're starting off on this note. We usually gotta take some time to build up. We was gonna jump in, man. We gonna jump in.
Yeah.
We know some sense of control. The powers that be have always been looking to implement that and kind of smooth it in without. And the reason why one would ask is like they can just do whatever since they know all the stuff. Well, they want to be able to establish, in my opinion, a sense of control that won't cause too much rioting or lead to anarchy. So by putting in all of this stuff and then having these diseases or viruses that come out every 4 years, we came from SARS, and then we went to the swine flu, and then it's like every time some president is elected, there's some virus that comes into play, or what I mean. So that's just what I've noticed. So when they're talking about this whole, we about to start establishing, and make it easy for you to have your vaccine cards and stuff like that. I'm like, it just moves us closer towards that we call it that Big Brother effect that you hear in so many different older sci-fi futuristic type of movies. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm not too thrown off. Like I'm not in shock by hearing this. And on one end, one would say this is a good thing, but because I'm not necessarily, especially at this point, pro COVID vaccine, because it hasn't been completely proven. It hasn't been proven to be 100% effective, and they're trying to push this thing. So I'm already kind of on the edge when it comes to that whole vaccine thing. Now we got this whole you're gonna have it where you can get your vaccine card and stuff. I'm just I'm not surprised, but I ain't liking it either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you with the whole Big Brother concept, because I mean it's already been foretold. All that stuff has been told before. 1984, George Orwell, all these, storytellers have already talked about the idea of, Big Brother coming down, all these government entities that are cross corporate entities, controlling society to the point of where, it's almost systematic, almost like computer-like.
Because we think about it. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I want to say, well, you think about how, like, when it comes to the corporate, so we have this idea in mind that we have different governments, and they sit at this like table where all like the United Nations sit down and try to have some type of regulation as far as what laws apply to this place and the other place. But with corporations, in a sense, because their reach, especially with the internet, is beyond the government walls, they already have a sense of deregulated control over the people. So Google over here can move and shake a certain way. Of course, they got the whole cryptocurrency thing. They're starting to push out checking accounts, I believe, within, if not the end of this year, but next year they have that going. Cryptocurrency is already, it's not regulated per se. I mean, you have certain government entities who are trying to push regulation on cryptocurrencies. I mean, they're trying to even make you get paid taxes on it now, but it's still heavily, deregulated. And then you have, just in a sense, Google, because the internet, they're able to be in different places, and because they're able to be in different countries, different continents, and they're able to push their quote unquote terms of usage. People, when it comes to having access to certain things, especially with Google, finding a way to carefully make you dependent upon. And I'm just using Google for example, but I know we're talking about Apple here. It can be any of these corporations, but they carefully using different methods to make you more dependent upon, the services they provide. They in turn become, if you, in a sense, like the entity that controls the quote unquote government. So
yeah,
I mean, I say I'm not shaken by this, because like you said, this stuff is privacy. I mean, they've been talking about this since the 1960s and 70s and all that, when they, the hippie conspiracy theorists, was talking about what was going down. And of course, because they was smoking weed heavy, they tried to write it off like, oh, well, these guys are just, they only psychedelics, they ain't really thinking correctly or using common sense. But now when you see these things coming into fruition, so it's just more so, you got to just get yourself prepared. And again, to speak to the article, I think I didn't digress enough. I'm not really too, I'm not going to be having a vaccine card just because I don't really care to. Like I said, my opinions on the vaccine itself is I need a little bit more testing, a little bit more proof, even as far as the COVID, Covidicus, if it's as if it's really as dangerous as it is. If you think just about the statistics, COVID has been quote unquote running rampant for some time, but I don't really hear too many talks about the flu or pneumonia, asthma attacks, heart disease, anything like that. So, everybody's supposedly supposed to be dying from COVID, but they still, I know my folks, they still eating fried chicken, they still eating unhealthy. And typical
there's a lot of people
they would not,
ain't nothing changed basically.
Yeah.
A lot of people ain't nothing changed. It's just been, less work or more work for other people. I mean, like when it comes to the actual health concerns, that's not really the big issue. I mean, it's really an economic issue for a lot of people. This pandemic is an economic disaster for most people, more than it is actual, like, biological warfare or whatever. But yeah, man, it's the way it is. Like, we already knew the idea that Big Brother was going to come around. It was kind of like those, we didn't have the technology that we have today, but the ideas was already there. We already knew that, we're nothing but a number to the system. We're all a number, they're watching us. And we didn't have the technology to really make those predictions come to fruition back in like the 80s and the 70s and whatnot. It sounded crazy to people because the technology didn't exist, but now it exists and it's happening, and we all got phones in our pocket, which was a phenomenon that we didn't believe. That was a pandemic more than anything. Like the technology that we use on an average basis is daunting.
We heavily dependent upon it, man. Like I know for a fact I don't know any phone. Only phone numbers I really know by my heart is my girl and my mother.
Yeah,
other than that,
it's the same numbers that I know prior to like 2010. I mean, it's the same numbers I know. I mean, any new number since 2010. If I ain't just put you in the contact and the name, I don't know your number for it. I mean, and that's just how it is. Like, I mean, it's really no point with all these, like, voice chat services, these video chat services. It don't really make a point to actually get somebody's phone number unless you really need to get in contact with them. And in most cases, that's how people feel about their phone number in the first place. It's like, I'm not going to give you my phone number unless I feel like you're valuable enough to get that number. Even with, guys are out here trying to holler at girls, be like, "Yo, can I get your number?" You be like, "No, I can get you. I'll give you my IG."
You got my IG. Yeah, there you go. You can on Facebook.
Yeah, because the phone number has become more personal now. It's become as personal as the social security number, and that's another thing that gets to me is like, with the idea of these wallets. it's sort of replacing the idea of social security numbers, because social security numbers is like 9 digits or whatever. It's a fileable system. People can take them cards and take those numbers and do whatever they want. People been stealing ID identification, person's identity for years, and that's all already been broken down. So what's going to end up coming with things like them putting verification cards on there is, next thing you know, your social security system is an ID. You're going to be at birth with some type of identification number that's like a 300-digit number that's like encrypted and verifiable to some digital database somewhere to make sure that that's you. It's probably tied to your DNA strand or some shit. Like, it's going to get to that point because it's kismet. It's meant to go that way. So like, prepare, because really it's no other. Like, if you don't have technology, you basically in the 70s, and if you got technology, you either roll with it or be aware enough to fight against it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the hard part for most of society, is that being aware is kind of beyond most people, because they just trying to be humans, man. They just trying to live.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're stuck in it. It's a combination of, we become so dependent upon the technology, as well as the beast of capitalism, that when you're on the upside it benefits you, and when you're getting stepped on, of course, when you're on the bottom side, it's a fight for survival. So and most people are not up. Only 9% of America makes over 100K, and even 100K nowadays is not enough to sustain, especially if you got a family. You feel what I'm saying? So most people out here getting hit with the financial stuff. I mean, that's why we had the whole issue, as I digress, where people, me and my girl went out with the kids, and you try to get service at a Ruby Tuesdays, and that joint was terrible because it was only like 3-4 people working in the whole store. They can't get nobody to come to work because they didn't dependent upon, the society has become dependent upon not only technology, but then the government assistance. You have folks, for the past, year and a half, 2 years, getting paid, unemployment plus some, to sit, for sitting home doing nothing than what they get paid going to work for somebody. So it's that's just how it is. I mean, I feel like even that, in a sense, was a move to get people to, not really. We already in a stage where most of us don't have the skills to be able to go out and survive in the wild. Like, none of us really know how to. I don't know how to plant stuff and then grow my own food and all that to keep it 100. I don't understand. I don't know how to build a home and all that stuff. And we kind of laugh at that stuff. You know what I mean? Dudes, old head Bob the Builder dudes, and know how to. They hands look like they smack on bricks for a living. They build houses. But at the same time, if everything goes to shit, you need these skills. So most folks, they're not really doing anything to gather more skills to survive, and they still becoming heavily dependent upon technology. That's just a recipe for control.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a lot of these jobs, it's job security. So like, any job that would have potentially tossed you out real quick because of something like COVID, it's going to be a hard time to get them back. At the end of COVID. Like, when COVID started, they was like, yo, sorry, yo, you out. I mean, like, I ain't got no choice. We didn't know what the deal was with COVID. We ain't know what all the situations was, how you get it. They just shut stuff down and told you ain't gonna make no money. So they just ran from those type of jobs. They just like, yo, if you're gonna kick me out off of this, then I ain't gonna come back. I mean, so like, a lot of people did find like ways to transition to some other type of discipline, some type of other industry to get them going. And then, when things like Ruby Tuesdays open back up, they like, yo, I need a waiter. And he like, I'm sorry, man, I'm a web developer now. I work from home. I mean, and like, it's hard to get them back, but that's the system. There'll be a whole new generation coming in. These kids that's coming in, they may want to come in and start, with a little job. Some people that need things like that, but like
low industry,
the older ones that are, seniors that are like, in their 50s, 60s, whatever, and they do like, still manual labor work. They gonna be hard pressed to try to find a real position that's gonna fit them. But yeah, we kind of getting off topic with the verification, but the whole thing is because of that. Like, this technology has kind of changed society in a massive way. I mean, you can blame the pandemic, but with technology being accessible as it is, it's changing how we choose to do what we want to do nowadays. Like you said, I mean, things like government assistance is definitely, playing a part of people's decisions of what they're doing. But, people just changing up all around. Some people think it's the end of Armageddon for real. So it's out here on their Mad Max shit. I mean, they taking people like
ready.
their money and
We
all
already
that.
kind of seen that a little bit when they first started. People was getting trampled for toilet paper. So you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just imagine when that joint really hit though. That's gonna be crazy.
Exactly. Next topic that we're talking about is we're gonna go over to the Google side of things, with smartphones and whatnot. You see the Apple side is, they're doing things like the vaccination cards, and Google has their attempts with certain things. They're pretty big in this market. They Google. They're another close to $2 trillion company or whatever. But this article is about how the Google Pixel 6 specs. We're going to sort of wash over the specs a little bit. We're just going to talk about, Android in detail and stuff. The specs for the new Pixel 6, it has a Tensor chip, or has the functionality of a Tensor chip in there, which is basically the chip that says that it's onboard artificial intelligence, or machine learning, so that it can do some of that stuff on the device without having to go to the cloud to do like AI stuff, capable stuff.
The way that basically, so the way it works is AI for the most part now is heavily driven by like cloud access, whereas though the Tensor chip makes it more local. That's pretty much what it is. Makes it where it's like personal.
Yeah, so you can do some stuff instantly instead of having to, it's a whole security thing with a lot of things. People say, I don't like you sending my voice up to the cloud to try to figure out my answer. If I ask Google something, if I say, hey, G, I want to know something, and you got to send it to the cloud to figure that information out, and you got to store a copy of my voice in the cloud. People don't really like that. If all I wanted to do was just like say open up music, I don't need you to go to the cloud to open up music. So like some of that stuff happens on device, and that's a security point, because of things like security is becoming a really big concern in the web in general, and on mobile devices. These things are becoming more and more personal. You got to have as much capability on these devices as much as possible, and you got to be able to have them secure. And all this sending stuff to the cloud and sending stuff to different servers and stuff, that's not really a secure model for.
It's not optimal.
For the future as we go along. First 10 years, all these cell phones and stuff, we all been beta testing cell phone technology. The next 10 years, the next 10 years where everything is really locked down and really secure. But we got to get to that point, which meant we had to see how insecure all these devices have been over the past 10 years. How many people got hacked and all this stuff. So
yesterday, last week they're talking about China got Microsoft Exchange again. But
exactly. It's a non-stop game until they just come up with a whole new method of completely locking down, and then there'll just be another game to play for real. When it comes to hackers, it's just about a game, man. It's just it's a problem to solve.
Finding the breach, finding the vulnerability. That's all.
But with this Pixel 6, the main thing is that it's going to be running Android and that it's Google's phone. So, Google owns Android. Everybody that has an Android phone is essentially a Google phone, but Google doesn't necessarily have 100% control over those phones. It's really like Samsung, Motorola, LG, whoever, is making the phone. But Google runs the operating system. They run Android. That's on top. Where in this case, this is a Google phone, Google hardware, and whatever Google says goes on this device. And with that, you could hope for better security, because Apple always talks about being a secure platform, being a secure platform, and how insecure Google is, or Android is. And in a lot of ways, they kind of right.
Yeah, that's the open source. That's what it does. Is that for people that don't know what open source means, that it's like it's easily accessible. You don't necessarily have a premium boundary in order to get access to something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what open source is. But of course, because it's open source, so many different hands are able to be in the pot, and it's only you just open yourself up to one of those hands being malicious and trying to do some things that like you just said. There's so many people that have access to something. You know what I mean? is bound to invite, you know, those type of things. You're bound to have more vulnerabilities because this is open so much. So it's not it's not closed circuit. So
Yeah. And it's the open source factor, but it's even more than that because you know, open source it makes it secure because you know you get to see all the code, so you get to find all the vulnerabilities too. Whereas in like Apple with their closed
that's
source
true.
system, you can't see when a vulnerability is there if you know Google if Apple doesn't want you
That's
to.
actually a solid point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like that's their factor, but the fact that it is open source means that if you got an LG phone, if you got a Samsung phone, if you got a Motorola phone, it's up to them to make sure you got all the updates. Yeah, I mean, to make sure that it's all secure, and they don't care. Yeah, I mean, because they try and get the next phone out. Yeah, I mean, so like a company like Google coming out with their Pixel 6, they own the phone, they own the software, they own Android. They can make sure that you got the latest version of Android, all the security updates when needed. Whereas if you got to go to LG got to get the update from Google, and then they got to push it to all their LG phones. And half the time they'll never feel like doing that. And the same thing with Samsung, especially Samsung, where you might get a note and you only get an update for that note for like a year. And that's what, and I mean, you might get 30 updates coming from Android from Google, but Samsung don't push those 30 for like the next year. So, and that's
over
because
the next 2 years.
they put their stuff on top, and it messes things up so that if they come out with all these updates, then that means they got to fix all the stuff that they put on top. It's sort of like a stack building process. So it becomes a problem. But if Google could actually get into the market of hardware and actually start selling these things, like one of the issues with Google is that they don't really like push it. I mean, they got enough money to push, but they just sort of like, you know, they sit around organically and be like, you know, we got a phone available. If you want to get it, it's cool. They don't say this is the greatest phone out. You need to get this phone. No phone is more secure than this.
The reason why they do that though is because they know they haven't established a strong, like, tangible, like, electronic footprint, right? Most of it, if you think about all the tech that we make use for something, like for instance, now this new camera I got, I'm feeling it, it's a Logitech. You know what I mean? Like, so whereas though you'll find more oftentimes with Microsoft and Apple and amongst other, I would say, technology companies that, you know, maybe not a part of the, I guess the three-headed beast of tech giants, right? The Amazon, Google, and Microsoft / Apple. You know, you have like your other companies that produce hardware. You know what I mean? Like your Toshibas and your you know, even Dell, if you want to throw that, like, they all make hardware stuff. You know, and they may dibble and dabble into like software things, but Google, when it comes to like why they are a tech giant, it's not because of their hardware. It's because of the search engine and how exactly the cloud, and as well as the when it comes to the money they're able to generate from the information collection that they have. You know, which is, you know, I think they have gone extra hard on that. But then when you have instances like this, when they coming out with something hard, you know, some hardware stuff, it may actually be pretty dope. It may actually be pretty secure. But I think just maybe because of, you know, I don't know how much sales they'll get on, just because even though you know, Google is widely known, I mean, it's Google, right? The habit pattern that people have when it comes to purchasing like technology, like hardware technology, you know, they don't think about I'm going to go get this Google hardware tech. That's just not. I'm pretty sure it's not readily like on the mind of the average person that buys technology. You either think about some Apple tech, some Microsoft tech, or one of these you know, smaller companies that just makes hardware.
Yeah, when a lot of people think of Android, they think it's Samsung straight up. And
exactly.
That'd be kind of a big deal. It's like they just like, yo, I want that Note, or I want that Galaxy, that S10 or whatever. Cause that's like the top tier when it comes to Android, is that you're going to get a Samsung phone, and that's basically going to be it. There's all the other phones available, and a lot of the market may pick those up, but it's not the same as getting like a Samsung or an Apple phone.
Yeah.
Those are the only two really that people care about. Is if I'm going to get Android, I'm getting that Samsung. If I'm getting an Apple phone, I'm just getting an iPhone, keeping it like that, just doing that.
Before we move on to my bad, go ahead.
No. But I'm just saying, it's you know, apples and oranges at the end of the day. But it would be good to see like Android actually sort of, trim off the fat, because they come out with this stuff at all these different platforms. I would like to see them one day just be like, you know what, y'all got this old version of Android, and we not giving y'all Android anymore because we want to make it just for us and lock it down, and we want to just make our own Google phones, and that's just it. It's just going to be our Google Android phone, and no other phone maker can make it. If y'all can't keep up with the security commitments to make sure that it's always secure, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, do you think that we actually answered the question? But I was going to ask, what do you think that if Google wanted to make a push to just like really put their hardware out, they would have had to be? But I think it'd either be, if we move on, like you said, is that they're gonna have to have that hard stop, like how they had to pull out Apple, where it's like, all right, boom, it'll be this, and we ain't, after this point, we're not making no more updates or nothing for the other phones. They have to do that,
right?
Or maybe I think they may have to just over promote it, because again, they have a strong digital footprint, when it comes to all of the information they have, and they just have to, Google has the capacity to put their ads everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they just have to heavily advertise. Every time you click on the site, you're going to see the Google Pixel every time. So I think that's what had to happen.
Yeah, true indeed. Let's go on to this next topic, man. Next topic that we have is about this is another topic about Google. Let me jump into this, and so y'all can see this article. Article reads: 3 Black-owned Alabama businesses each get $100,000 from a $5 million Google fund. Just to read like the subhead of it: health tech firm Acclinate, networking app Mixtros, and healthcare monitor Tensor were chosen along with 15 firms or along with other firms from 15 states to receive money. So this is $5 million that has been split out amongst a variety. It says among 50 nationwide chosen. So amongst 50 companies, $100,000 was given out to each one of them, which totaled about $5 million. And in particular, these 3 companies from Alabama, which is, a bonus in general for Alabama, just for being Black-owned companies in Alabama. Alabama has a large history of being a racist state, being a Confederate state. So to see them actually, to see Google investing in Black-owned businesses in Alabama is just a bonus in itself. What do you think about this, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's pretty dope. I was going to say you hit the nail right on the head. I was going to point out that it was not just one in Alabama, not just one Black-owned business. It was 3 Black-owned businesses in Alabama that got a funding. So I think Google, I think they did pretty good, with the funding on this one, because not Google. No, it is Google. I'm tripping. But yeah, I think they did pretty good on. I know I thought I seen Bezos, but
startup Black Founders Fund.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
I got a little side eye about the whole thing, because I mean, it's still Google. It's still 5. I mean, it's whatever. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the 5 million. But
yeah,
it's 5 million.
That's what I want to say. I mean, I think they did, singling it out, but at the same time, it's only, how much is 5 million to a billion? Of course,
let me see. Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. Let me see him put $1 billion in it. Then we talking.
Yeah, because they can put up, if they're close to 2 trillion as far as market cap, and they want to really, at the end of the day, I remember back in the days, they would always talk about how I guess switching to like some more hip hop stuff, right? They'd be like, Jay-Z, he wasn't really on the whole like philanthropy type of thing. He'd like give out like 25,000 here and there when they got like millions upon millions. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, maybe he, it's a different story. I mean, you never know what the telltale is. Cause I mean, some folks, they do stuff and it's not really talked about. I mean, go under the radar, but I feel like it's maybe in that same energy of, if how Google has taken over the game so much, like you said, have a digital footprint, and when it comes to, when you think about search engine, you think Google anything. I mean, we even use that. Maybe they could have shoveled out a little bit more money. I know that when it comes, when they say 100,000, it's good because they only as far as how much money they were putting up in the first place, 5 million. It was and they had to pick what 50 different. Well, I don't know if they had to, but they picked 50 different other companies. Yeah, so it's good, but again, how much is 5 million really worth to Google? That's what the
Right.
question really is. Is how much is it really worth?
Right. And I really want to see, because Google is known to make companies. They're documented as turning over 2,000 companies essentially. So 2,000 companies worth of whether they're employees or just companies that they've invested in, they've essentially turned
Bought
out
out.
2,000 other companies coming from Google. So I mean, it's always a good idea for Google to invest in other businesses just because it sort of diversifies their portfolio essentially. Allows them to spread their wings a little bit from just search and advertisement. But I like to see what they actually doing with it a little bit more. Two of these companies are health based. I know Google was big on the whole concept of health. I remember when they first came out with Google Health, but then they killed it and then came back out with it again with like Google Fit. But now they actually bought the Fitbit and investing in companies like this, particularly like the sensor med. I wonder what type of sensor that is. It says a healthcare monitor, but it doesn't really specify like the details of it. I'm gonna look these companies up a little bit more, along with the health tech firm. I like to see how they would circle around the idea of Fitbit, being that they still haven't really fully transitioned to working with Google. Like, it's under Google's umbrella essentially, but they haven't really rolled out any products using Fitbit. They haven't come out with like a new Fitbit watch at all or anything like that. So
Google Bit.
yeah, exactly. I mean, so like I'm wondering what their plans are with investing in these companies. Usually it's hard to say. Like sometimes you may think that because it's Google, you think they're going to come turn out this next $1 billion company, and they just coming up with something that it may be a couple $1 million here and there on its own, which is great in itself, but it's not necessarily. They're not about to change the future with it. They just trying to make a quick bet where they can get like 5% return on their investment type thing.
Yeah.
And it'd be good to see. Like I said, I'm more just happy about the fact that they talking about Birmingham-based businesses, and being that they Black companies. So like that's a main bonus there. I'm gonna watch these companies a little bit more just to see what comes out of them.
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, like you said, the fact that they have invested in. So there's already. I watch ABBA and Preach their podcast, and they talk about it often. Like they address some things that they're like racial issues and stuff like that, whether it be within like all across different industries. And I like the idea in this that they are singling out. They talk about some of these things in their podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to certain companies or entities directly focusing on a particular race and why that's a good thing. And one of the things I believe in is that a rising tide raises all ships. And one of the undercurrents of America is that we still live in a racist society, whether it be whether it be overt or covert. It's still people are impacted by racism on a daily basis. And the fact that it seems like Google they're taking a little bit a little bit of money, a little bit of their money to focus directly on the Black cause, which is helping establish Black businesses to help the Black infrastructure. I think it's a good move for this America, and I would actually want to see that happen more often because again, rising tide raises all ships. I think that once we start to be able to give people a fair chance to participate in capitalism, we may start to see a lot of the issues that people face when it comes to prejudice and stuff like that slowly start to dissipate. I mean, I may be reaching for the stars there, but I think that's something that could potentially come from having a concerted effort to invest in racial groups that are not part of not our European counterparts. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm doubling down. You just reminded me. I might have just like broke my desk, but I'm doubling down on what I said. Yeah, man, they need to put $1 billion in this because I forgot you just reminded me. Like they fired the AI evangelist because of the paper that she wrote, some type of dissertation that she wrote about how she believed the problems that exist with artificial intelligence and being biased and all that stuff. And
oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and like they never really resolved that. They never really resolved that. They sort of like just washed over it a lot, and doing things like this to get their name in good graces with the African American community.
People like myself.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what? I want to see something come out of it before I start giving them applause. So it is what it is. Next article that we got is this is from Washington Post. So actually, this is from Jeff Bezos. I think he owns the Washington Post. So this might be a fluff article. I mean, so like the article reads: Jeff Bezos pledges $1 billion to protect 30% of the Earth's land and sea. Yeah, man, I think this might really be a fluff article more than anything. But yeah, so he went into space a couple months ago. Big deal for him. A lot of people really didn't care as much as as of this recording. There was a whole nother space launch that happened maybe like 2-3 days ago where they went around orbit for 3 days. They orbited the Earth for 3 days and then they went back and landed back down. That was a bigger event than what Jeff Bezos did and what who's the Virgin guy? Who's the one that owns Virgin Galactic? Anyway, whatever the other dude's name is, that was a big event or whatever. But the SpaceX flight that happened recently, that was really like a major event because that was with civilians that actually stayed out in space for 3 days or more, a little bit. But yeah, this idea that Jeff Bezos is pushing out, he's pushing this $1 billion pledge because he went out into space and he looked at space. He looked back at Earth and he was like, you know what? Earth looks kind of broken. Yeah, man, it looked like it looks frail. What was the exact term? He said that it looked fragile. I mean, so looking at Earth from this point of view, from being out in space, Earth looks kind of fragile. So he feels like he is, indentured to Earth, where he has to, make sure that he can put his funds to making sure that Earth, thrives. And then, a part of this is probably just so that he is in the name of good graces when it comes to philanthropy as well, because, his wife been running around, well, his ex-wife been running around giving money away like she just don't know what it is. I mean, she was just giving away $8 billion here, $5 billion here. I mean,
you saying that's what billion?
That's what her wife been giving away. His ex-wife has been giving away money to universities, particularly like HBCUs, like left and right, like
oh wow,
and like
I didn't know that. Okay,
that, that $150 billion that he had got split in half for the most part. So she got her half, and she don't need all that money. She knows she don't need all that money, so she been giving that money out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. So my original thought when I heard this about the whole thing with Earth is I don't know why I'm such in love with Mass Effect, the game. I'm just like, whenever I hear something about like this thing, it gets me excited because it's like you think about the idea of in the future, we'd probably be dead and gone by this time. I mean, you never know, but when they start to go to different, hey man, go to the show. But yeah, I would say that going to different planets and maybe if they're barren as far as sentient beings, America, I'm saying America, the Earth. I'm so fixated on saying the United States of America, but Earth, setting up colonies in different places just to further establish more reach for the human race is just something that it's interesting to think that there may come a time where that actually exists. But on a lighter note, I feel that what you pointed out, that if this is in fact Jeff Bezos's WashingtonPost.com, and putting this out. It's a fluff article. How much this, and it comes down to how much do you. If you think about in terms of you spending billions, yes, 75 isn't a lot. Just as much as if you think about in terms of dollars, 75 isn't a lot. You know what I mean? But it's all about, again, how you maintain that. And then too, how much, I don't know what a person has to do to be to spend $1 billion on themselves in a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I hear stuff like he's saying that, or you were saying that his wife giving away, of course, the initial shock, I'm thinking that's what I said. If I got only 75 billion, I said only 75 billion, right? But 75 billion, and I'm giving out 3 and 5 and 10 here, that joint gonna dwindle down, but
exactly.
At the same time, you have the other part of that where you think, how much do you actually need in order to what's most important. So, this move of them of Bezos investing in, as you would say, investing in the earth and the tending to the fragility of Earth is a noble cause at the end of the day, even if it is fluff, even if it is, a little bit of money, it's chump change to, a baller like him. I mean, it still benefits because most folks are not in a position to invest $1 billion into anything. You know what I mean? Specifically, even comes down to the Earth. So, I mean, it's just a nice article. It's the same thing. It's the same energy of, Drake in God's plan, recording himself going around giving out $1 million. It's all right, you got a hundreds of them Jones, you know what I mean? But it's still for the folks in the city. It was a move because they needed it more than he did. So
right. Yeah, it's nonetheless, whether you actually just have $1 billion, particularly it's probably more beneficial if you spend $1 billion because you still have $1 billion worth of influence. Just because you spend $1 billion, your $1 billion isn't gone. You still influence whatever that $1 billion was spent on.
Man, Mike talking that Tony Robbins stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Still there.
So even though he spent $1 billion, he still got another $75 billion, $100 billion to deal with, and who knows what type of power he'll potentially have from this $1 billion investment. So it'll be good to see what happens. It's still a fluff article. Maybe if I read it from somewhere else, then I know it's real. But as long as it's just coming from the Washington Post, and I don't even hate on the Washington Post for real. I ain't gonna hate on nothing, but it is owned by this dude, so it's kind of, they ain't gonna say nothing bad about him. They ain't gonna call him Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
I believe he Lex Luthor, but ain't nobody call him Lex Luthor. But next article, man. Let's go ahead and check this out. Next article on the screen. Let's get it up here. Microsoft accounts can now fully go passwordless, or I think I read that backwards. Go fully passwordless. This is probably a great thing. As what the main crux of this is that now you don't necessarily need a password. You can use one of a variety of other options. In particular, the thing that I use frequently is the Microsoft Authenticator app. I have about 3 different Authenticator app services that I use, but you can use the Microsoft one that comes with it. Essentially, it'll change the number every minute or whatever, and you just put that number in based on what minute it is, and that should get you in. You can also use Windows Hello, which is basically video, like a face unlock, similar like iPhone or something like that. It's not that good, but it's all right. Then they always had the thing, which was the security key, where you can essentially put a USB key, a programmed USB key into the computer and get in that way. But now I guess they're also offering this SMS and email verification option just to get into your computer. I don't know how I feel about all this because, some of the stuff is cool if you don't have to be online, but something like the SMS and email verification, you gotta be online for that to always work, which means your computer always has to be connected to some type of Ethernet for that to work, or else it doesn't know that you logged in and it doesn't know how to send you an email or SMS text. Right. So the only other option is just, use a password like you've always been doing, or maybe the Authenticator app. Like I said, Windows Hello isn't like iPhone, where the iPhone will scan your whole face. It'll actually get a 3D scan of your face and the dimensions and the size to say, is this really this person? Microsoft Hello is still like 2D face unlock. So you basically can hold up a HD picture and get that thing unlocked if need be. And it's really hard to keep people using the security key. I don't know too many people that
still use. I mean,
I had them for fun. Got one, put on my keychain. Somehow in my pocket, it broke.
But yeah, exactly. The same thing. I was say same thing happened to me. I had one of them joints when I was went for an old job I was working for. I mean, I was gonna say that like when I actually introduced, I said that I think it's a double-edged sword because it gives people different options to be able to access, have the access point, for their computer. But like you said, is that some of those things you have to be online, and then it just boils down to so whenever convenience is born to deal with a certain issue, what you find is that most people, I'm speaking, I ain't no guru or nothing, but I'm just thinking to myself how the logic works is that it gives people an opportunity to kind of be lazy.
Yeah.
Right. And then, it's almost like some things are established because people are lazy, so it can become a cycle. Right. But, I think what people need to start doing, even myself, I'm tread lightly with these words, but I mean, what's one of actually is what it is. We got to just become a little bit more vigilant with, establishing good passwords because, for example, I had that option with my work computer, and even when we were going through the process of selecting different ways to different like the same exact scenario of different ways to be able to get into the computer. They said that be careful because if you're not online, then you won't be able to log in. Like if you have like a SMS thing or like a for instance, the email, like all that same methodology of being able to access your computer. I had that same. I was at that same presented that same opportunity, and of course, this makes sense that you want to be able to, when it comes to your personal machine, you always, regardless of what the situation may be able to have access to it because you may not be online. I'm thinking, my mind's going to the action movie type of thing where let's say that there's some hacker guy or even James Bond. They got to get into this computer. I don't know what my mind.
Yeah.
And it's like if the only way he got to be able to do it is he online. He got to have access to this key you got to put into the joint. He fighting, throwing blows and all that stuff. Somebody snatch the joint off and crush it. You can't get to the thing to shut the bomb off.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's just best to, I think, be able at the end of the day just have that remembered in your mind, or have something going where it's different things out there. This will actually be really dope. This part right here, I'm about to say, Mike, this actually be really dope to like have a plug for some type of ad. Where it's like you go into like the whole what's one of these services that handles
like brought to you by LastPass.
Exactly. We go jump in and say this is why you need to have LastPass, because you have this somewhere down the line, y'all be ready. Y'all going to see what's good. But this right by my point, I feel like it's at the end of the day, just become a little bit more versed in with having your passwords. I know for older folks, like for people who are not completely tech savvy, that may be harder. I mean, shoot, maybe they even got to have something on them where they, in there because they still be writing stuff down, have it written down like, oh, this is my password for this, this, and this. Because again, you don't want to be, although the internet and what is presented, the accessibility is great. Whenever you're in a dead spot where it's not available, you still want to be able to access, your technologies.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like face unlock for Apple must be patented by Apple because they have not. It's been about like 5 years,
That's
6
true.
years, and they still haven't like come out with a competitor to it yet.
Mm-mm.
Like face unlock works so well that you look at it once, it unlock your stuff before you even get a chance to really realize that it's unlocking.
But sometimes that don't be looking at you and unlock. You be like this, and then you say unlock, like, oh wait.
I mean, you sit at the phone, you just see it unlock for no reason. You be like, what? I mean, it worked really well. And that type of technology, like you try it on Android, it does not work. It tell you,
Don't fade.
shake your screen a little bit. I mean, or like with the phone, like or Windows, it'll actually tell you to shake your head, like look to the left, look to the right, try to get those perspectives and whatnot. But I mean, that's by that time, you might not even want to be in the computer no more.
Right.
So like, there has to be a better option with like biometrics. I know fingerprint capabilities out there, but they rarely put them in like laptops and desktops and like keyboards or something because it's not like a standard. But iPhone kind of really has a lot when it comes to that face unlock capability. That's like the closest thing to using a fingerprint that when it comes to security. And it's probably I think it's kind of more secure than a fingerprint because you can fool a fingerprint. But it got to be patented by them because nobody else has come out with anything close. Next article that we got is next to last. This is a fluff article. I don't really care about this at all. But it's Office 2021 will be available for non-Microsoft 365 subscribers on October 5th. That's like 10-15 days ago. So, but I mean, I just transitioned over to being in a Microsoft Office realm, and I don't like it for the life.
Y'all heard that long sigh. You was like,
yeah, man, it doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, part of this article, even, just the title alone doesn't make sense to me anymore because we're in a cloud-based world, and I understand that, there's a lot of legacy. People don't want to transition over or they slow the transition. But the desktop version of Office should have been dead a long time ago. And they just keep rolling out. Like it could be a web version out there today and it could fully run today. I think the reason that they didn't do it for a while is because they didn't have a good browser. And now they have Edge, and now they can probably, really come up with a web application that does it. Because, with web technology, you can make a browser version of this, run it fully in the browser, and make it available offline so that you could treat it like a desktop app. I mean, and even if you ain't got a connection to the internet, you can just press that icon, it opens it up, got a little window, don't look like a browser, and you can just run your application right there. But
my bad. Go ahead.
No.
Well, I was going to ask, so how that will work when it's, I guess more so, I don't know, server side or client side how it will work, but let's say that it is, maybe this is an opposing view, right? But we just got done talking about like if it's internet, just having the internet being restricted to internet access or the internet access point, if you will, is that if it's a online app. But let's say you're trying to access it and access it when you're not, anywhere where the internet is. Let's say you're trying to, you're flying on an airplane and you're trying to pay that $20 an hour for the internet.
Yeah.
How would you then, be able to work on, your Microsoft, your Excel or your Word? Because I assume, and you're more of the, I guess, on the developer side, Mike. But like, if you need to open it up or access would it be they need to access the web first and then have that window open? And it's
no, because if it's its own app, let's just take like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, those are considered its own application. You could download that application and have it run it fully on your local computer, and what they call it's usually a button on the side that says, like, when you go to it on the website, there's a button usually in the menu somewhere, or sometimes it may pop up in the address bar, a little plus sign. It'll say install this app, and essentially all it's doing is just downloading all the files that make that web app work on the browser, but you can just run it locally. The only real concerns is for what file you want to actually access, because most of your files may actually be in the cloud. So you got to also make sure that you're telling it to make sure your files are offline also. so that you can
and all,
actually,
even when it comes to you working on stuff, what you brought up is because I'm like, why would I ask that question? I got Google Drive on my computer, right? But
yeah,
only
yeah,
thing I have to worry about is like the syncing, like when you get back
right,
on the internet, what it would take for those files to sync up. So I mean,
right, right.
be it that when we're talking about these apps that don't have, it's not like storage intensive, right? It's not like a video file, like you're doing any type of like
Mhm.
Adobe type of work, anything like that. I think it would be good, it would work
And even
because
then, they like aviary, like a lot of these. The only reason that they haven't flipped over to like making a full web apps is because they still trying to figure out how the way to keep it locked down where they can make a profit off of it. So like Adobe, a lot of the video features. There was a company called Aviary that was out. That was basically Adobe in the cloud. Yeah, I mean, it was Adobe. You could just go to the website. You had Photoshop, you had Illustrator, you had all these video editing software, but it was on a website. You go to it, you can run your stuff right there. You can actually download it like a what they call a progressive web app, the web apps basically, and you can just save it on your computer, do it locally if you wanted to. Adobe bought that company and shut them out, and you don't hear nothing, no capability that's like that. I mean, because they want to make sure that when it's capable, they the ones that do it.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, so like
It's
they
Adobe.
bought this company that is capable of doing it. They probably checking all the code, making sure that is Adobe's version of the code, and they probably going to come out with another version in like maybe 2-3 years. But things change. And,
With
COVID
the
happened and all
Adobe
this stuff.
branding on it. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah, I
was just
mean,
sitting there thinking like that's just the it seemed like that's just the way when it comes to like tech companies now. We're not in that space where technology in itself so like with the boom of the internet, right? Like the information, especially like post 2000, you know, I think we've entered into a stage where like there's so many different companies out there that has like so many different IT technology companies, and I think
mhm.
we're at this point now where like those who had skin in the game the longest, the tech giants, if you will, or like those who have established like the footprint in a particular marketplace and have the expertise. If someone under them within the same market starts to rise up, what they'll do is they'll just give them an offer that they can't refuse. Meaning, like
Yeah,
since
yeah,
that was the whole thing that happened with Snapchat, where as though
Instagram.
either yeah, exactly, where well, Instagram was smart about it.
Yeah,
Snapchat,
they took the offer.
what I mean, they took the offer, and then what
Yeah.
happened is Snapchat didn't know that they couldn't refuse the offer. So
Mhm.
now that they turn down that 30 billion, that still will get me till the day I die. They turn down that 30 billion. Now Snapchat's functionality is obsolete. I mean, it's like they are considered the legacy version of
Yeah,
what they originally created. So
exactly.
I think that's just what the name of the game is now. Is that you got companies where, it could have been, and I don't know. I know that when it comes to the cloud stuff, Microsoft is they are just now establishing their footprint in the game versus like others. But I mean, it could have been an
Yeah.
idea that they got from some other company out there that I mean, sure, it's probably with Google, right? You got the
I mean,
idea,
they
you
they
know.
they slow to get to the cloud, but they had so many customers that was
Yeah,
ready for them.
yeah,
It was like they had all these because they had all these desktop enterprise customers. They were just like, you know what, we want to go to the cloud, but we want to go with you, Microsoft. So we'll wait till y'all ready. And when they got ready, yeah, I mean, they quickly became number two because
man.
they already had the old enterprise, clientele. Whereas like, Google, they never really got in the enterprise. Amazon was just first with it. Yeah, I mean, they were just kind of the first company to really push the cloud agenda. So they had to market off of that. And then they had like cheap servers and stuff like that. So, you know, I feel like when it comes to the cloud, Amazon is like, the Walmart of it, Costco's. I mean, so it's like they got quick accessible stuff, but it's not necessarily the best. It's just quick and accessible. So like that's their realm. Microsoft, they got the enterprise secured platform. I think Google is more like the scientific and academic, startup cloud platform for a lot of people. But like nonetheless, Microsoft with their 365 platform, like it's like they wanna push it out there, but they really only just did it as far as they need to be proper competition with Google. Like they're not really pushing it to be like the leading platform where Office 365, like originally they were like, yo, Office 365 is all about your life. Anywhere you go, everywhere it's 365, all years or whatever. Not 360, but 65. I mean, but
Microsoft 360.
every day of the year. Yeah, it should have been 360, right? They had the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
It should have been 360, but
Why
they chose
not?
365. But like once they had just enough people to believe in them again, to say that, we're continuing the future. You don't need to go to Google. Once they had enough people protecting trusting in them, they just sort of slowed it down again. You don't really hear much about OneDrive getting new functionality, new features. You don't really hear much about the new Office 365 getting too many features. It's slowly rolling out, but you always hear about the latest, greatest Office 2021 doing desktop, and it's like, why y'all push so much money in this when you know it's technically a dying field, and it's really just because it's an easy sale. It's a quick sale.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they ain't gotta do much to sell it.
It's like they can do the whole like they pushing the other, the desktop version and be like, oh yeah, by the way, you can get the same stuff online too. It's just,
exactly.
their online accessibility is always what we call like the order bump. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, if you want to get this, you can get this too. That's
but it's not. I mean, it's not even like comparable for real, because like they say with the subscription, the subscription model is the one where you can get Office 365, but the web applications aren't that great, but you still got desktop Office because that's the subscription model. You get desktop Office with it. This is really for Office 2021. It's just for people that, this what this article is about. It's really for the people that don't have the Office 365 subscription. So this is for people that's just like, I don't want to be online. I just want to buy it for my computer and be out.
I don't like Microsoft. I just like Word.
Yeah, I just like Word. I mean, I need to get this whole thing so I can use Word and look at a spreadsheet. And that's a dying community. Like, because if you're not online, then it's like, what are you doing? This is for the people that don't want to subscribe to their system, but they need to use these old legacy things. And at some point, like I said last time, like, if this was Apple, they'd have just been like, yo, y'all done.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got to move on to the latest, greatest, because we're not doing this anymore. We're not holding y'all hand, dragging y'all along. But it's Microsoft, and they play with the pub. They play good. They play well with the other companies because they don't want to shake no feathers. I mean, they don't want to shake no branches and none of that. So it is what it is.
I think it comes down to like the model goes that with Microsoft, they try to maintain. They hold on to their legacy customers, where Apple is constantly like rolling out different things to get new clients. I think it's what it is.
Yeah, true. So we got one last article. This last article is from Yahoo Finance. So let me click on it to make sure y'all see that. It's Google exec on launching the digital wallet. We plan to earn trust, or we plan to earn the people's trust. I don't know how they're gonna earn people's trust when they never have. Like everything that they've come out with, everything that they've done. Like every time they come out with a new feature, a new functionality, a new app, the talk of the town is like, yo, they gonna steal your data.
Yeah.
Like,
Facebook. Zuckerberg, he worked with the CIA. That's all.
I mean, that's all. As like, there is no platform that is more known to be inside your business than Facebook. The next one is Google, but like Facebook is it, and half of it is because we have open dialogue on Facebook. So like all these conversations that used to be private, AB conversations, see your way out. Now it's like C is Facebook. C is sitting there around the corner, I mean, with a microphone and a tape deck, listening, just making sure they know what's going on so they can send an ad to you. But like now, they for the past little while, like maybe like a year and a half, 2 years, they've been talking about Libra, trying to get into the whole cryptocurrency thing. Kind of fell short for a while. They had the Libra organization. It was some type of foundation organization where Libra was the cryptocurrency, and they were trying to get at least, I think they said at least 100 other businesses, other online entities, like eBay or, probably not Amazon, but like, other, Shopify, something like that, to actually also take the Libra coins, and they were going to make these digital wallets that ran Libra. And, there was other companies that could create wallets that use Libra, but they were going to try to be the original foundation for Libra. And it was a big thing where they need to put a pot of money up because, to start any type of financial currency or whatever, you got to have some type of backing. So
right, it has to be backed by something.
Yeah. So they were going to look for like 100 other companies that could put money into the pot to start the Libra thing going, and try to run it like that.
It's like I feel like this in the idea. So we live in America where, according to, I believe it was after 1970. I gotta get my history right. I know that. Let me see, in the 1919s. Bear with me here, y'all. Like, I know it was like 1919, something that wrote the whole. I think the IRS and Social Security was divided out. But you see a long-standing history with America that, we are, as a nation, resourceless. Our dollar is, quote unquote, backed by the blood and sweat of the people. I forgot where where I heard that quote.
They keep trying to say gold, but I ain't seen no gold.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely that's gone. Like you see, if you look at some of the older dollars, like before 1970, it was like, this is a silver dollar note, or like this is a gold dollar note, where that's not on the money now. So I feel like where I was going with this is that the idea of a company, a U.S. based company, trying to establish a currency and back it by companies whose currency or their money and how they exchange it is backed by something that is essentially non-existent. I feel like they were kind of bound to have a little bit of topsy-turviness there. And it's I was going to ask Mike is that if you look at all of these things that, and this is I want to know your opinion on this, dude. Like when you look at these technologies, right? That whether it be within like the whole blockchain, and then cryptocurrency, all the cryptocurrencies on the rise, or even just these technology companies that like all these companies seem to be birthed from like a select few people who had an idea and pushed, and emptied a lot of their intellectual, what I want to call it, their intellectual bandwidth and money into these things to bring it into fruition. It wasn't necessarily pushed by like a corporation or a group of corporations. Like in when you look at, for instance, with Quibi, that's probably the latest version of a company that was the latest example of a company that was supposedly, I think they invested like over $1 billion into it, and then it flopped in 8 months.
Yeah.
So the question I have to you was like,
Roku.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So do you think that the idea of companies coming together to establish something like some technology like this is just bound to flop, or do you think they can really pull something off? Because the way that I feel history tells it is that typically what happens is a select few people come up with something and then a corporation grabs a hold of it, right? Versus a bunch of corporations coming together to create something and the people actually get, grabbing a hold to it. What do you think?
I mean, usually sort of like what's happening in China right now is, companies will start to do something, and then once they see that it start having like a mass adoption, the government will come in and shut that shit down.
Yeah, that's
They'll be like, no, we need to be have our, and we need our people in on this. Like, if y'all gonna be making money, we gotta get our percentage. And we gotta have regulations and laws about this because y'all messing our whole system up. We had our citizens control.
Right. Ain't no damn free enterprise over here.
like we need to be in on this. So like, I mean, the same thing would happen with if they were trying to do this with like an Americanized company. And Facebook is trying to make this a global thing. They're trying to push this, international. So there's the international currency effectively. That's not going to fly with the U.S. government, like not without having regulations in place. Like it's already bad enough. All right, thanks, Sam. It's already bad enough the amount of power that Facebook had, and that was part of the issue. Is like Facebook was trying to push this in the middle of like the damage that was done in the past 4 or 5 years with how how Facebook had a lot of influence on politics and on economics.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
they had the whole thing with, they didn't have any type of regulation on political ads.
yeah,
So people was
yeah,
out there just saying anything.
yeah, just saying anything. I mean, sending any type of agenda. I mean, then you want to put money behind this. You want to have the current system that is so messed up that you got people thinking in conspiracies, believing in QAnon. I mean, like you want to put this same system into like our currency and into our transaction platform and turn this so that people can just buy anything or spend money on anything. And internationally, I mean, we don't know, we got like international trade laws, like Interpol, and any type of thing that we deal with, like what is the term? It's trade, but it's like the FTC has to get involved in these type of things.
Yeah.
Even like because you can spend money on human trafficking. That's what was that whole company Silk Road, the website that was on the Tor network a long time ago, where they were selling women and rocket launchers using Bitcoin. I mean, like that's basically what Facebook can become if there's no regulation for how they deal with their currency transactions. Like if it's just private companies and there's no government entities that's involved, that means there's no like legal system involved and there's no law enforcement involved. I mean, for America, we got the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branch. None of that is involved if you're talking about doing these international, currency formats using like cryptocurrency essentially. And if it's an international thing, that means all these other companies, all these other countries that have companies investing in them have to be a part of it too. So like if it's a Huawei or if it's some type of Chinese company, that means China has to get involved, and they not feeling that. Yeah, I mean they not going to feel that. The only country that would probably feel that is something like Russia, because they got a lot of they really loose with their laws.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They allow a lot of stuff to fly.
Russia is although they have it's interesting. Russia's interesting because they have. I feel like the country in itself is what's unique about the culture is that there tends to be like a togetherness, like a universal like a group thing, right? There, when it comes to their laws, it's like a lot of frontier justice. It's not like there's no time of running and like you think about how involved our government is. It's like theirs is not like that. Like I feel like even to a degree, like let's say that we have a bunch of known hackers, right, that just constantly are wreaking havoc in other countries. Like our government, or at least in the public eye, will be quick to chastise them and try to enforce some type of consequence on those hackers is doing malicious things. Whereas though Russia, they're just known for just like hacking shit. You know what I mean? It's their country just like at the end, hey, just make your shit more secure.
Right. We can't do anything about this. What do you expect us to do? You want us to go arrest them? What do we look like?
We can't monitor everybody.
Like we're not the U.S. We can't try to look over everybody. But like, yeah, man, like that's what it would be. It would be a state of lawlessness if like tomorrow we could just turn Facebook into a bank and everybody could just put their money into it and trust that. It had to be these 200 company or these 100 other companies that's invested into it, because they would all have to, have a say in it. But at the end of the day, Facebook has enough money where they could just pour more money into the pot to have more of a say. So they would control things, and they don't really control stuff well. Like you got to remember, like Facebook isn't like comprised of like people that have been around for millennia. Millennia. I don't think anybody around for millennia, but for at least like a couple years. These people mostly like our age.
Their culture is not something that's been established over hundreds of years.
I don't trust people from my demographic on the same level that I'm on to come up with a full currency system that can be managed by the world. I mean, that can be sustained internationally.
I'm following you. Yeah.
I mean, I need somebody that at least been through like 5 depressions.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. That like that's the culture of the people who run Facebook is not as like the depth of it is not as
they
as
idealistic.
it, it's just what makes, for instance, why people have trust in America, like the country, is because of how the history. It's a combination of the education of the history as well as what we know about the things that America has or perceivably has accomplished, and by doing so they've been able to establish, even if people don't like America, they trust in the financial system, right? They trust in the laws that because of just the tenure that the entity, the country has. It's been around for some time versus like Facebook is, to some degree, some people would say it's still established. The roots are established in sand because of how technology is, and that's why I think that it's getting, by doing so, like Facebook trying to be establish that footprint, it can become very volatile because, like you said, those folks like within our demographic. I mean, we come from a demographic. This is already kind of a little bit, most people would say on like the other the other, what do you call it, people before us would say is a little bit on edge, the quote unquote millennials, right? We were part of watching the transition from going to no very little internet usage to dial up to now the real information bone, and then everything kind of go, so we come from that whole, like we've been on both sides. So to say that we then will try to go about establishing some type of some law that would regulate the world, right? When a lot of us, especially with the how the internet is now, we develop most people develop their perspective of what of right and wrong based off of where they live versus what the world is actually going through. You may find a situation where I think that some people it can be a lot of polarity there, where some people may become too benevolent, and then some people may become like too repulsive in their like oversight of things. You know what I mean? So I think that but at the end of the day, I think that's what the push is that you have these and I think that's what they're trying to establish with the whole like Libra initiative, is by having corporations from people who are seasoned, that come from different backgrounds, different time periods, try to put together some type of standard that you feel like the law can go by. But I think what will happen is that we'll start to have a true battle between the law, in which people really don't know, like they don't take notice to it, but the governments are actually backed by the people, right? Like the people actually establish these things, especially within a democratic environment, right? So the people it really become truly a battle of the people versus the corporations, because you'll have it where, let's say even now, like let's say that for whatever reason, Google just decides to, they got their bread, they opting out of the internet, like the type of shambles that would leave the internet in. And like with our government, with a lot of our people being dependent upon with Google, like Google's, like I was saying before, the amenities that they offer, and the Google says we're not going to cut our stuff back on until the government does X, Y, and Z. Then we have a whole. It's like it becomes, then we go back into the movies. What I mean?
Yeah.
Like things we've seen. So, I mean, it's I think what we see with these corporations is they kind of like are testing that and pushing against that. And one of these days, we actually may see where that takes place, where one of these corporations are just like, you know what, enough of, America has a population of 330 or 350 million people, 250 million of them use our services. We're cutting it off, and we're not going to cut it back on until we get these amenities from the government.
Yeah.
I mean, where we land.
Just this little bit right here. It reads that Navi which is the platform that they essentially call it. It used to be Libra, but
Mm.
Navi is being launched in conjunction with the launch of Diem, a pending cryptocurrency project from Facebook that initially became known to the public in 2018. The project, originally called Libra, faced a number of setbacks in 2019. Financial giants like MasterCard and Visa abandoned the project, which is, exactly the issue. It's like they're going to these companies and, they're coming up with these financial systems, this structure for coming up with a new financial system. And the companies aren't agreeing to it. They want to have their own say on it. Why aren't they going to like the UN? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't you going to the actual governance of these locations and saying we're trying to actually do an international currency that is available everywhere? They're going to these private entities because they know they're able to, work around the system.
They're able to barter something, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, in a lot of cases, all it's going to do is come back to some type of taxation system, where civilians are going to have to end up paying the tax to the governments. They're trying to avoid having to pay that money to the government themselves. So they try to bypass that, make like this bucket of money by these private entities and have all the money be dealt with in a private manner. And that way you don't have to necessarily deal with the government entities at all. You don't have to deal with the banks, and that becomes a problem. Facebook ain't the company for that. I mean, like,
yeah,
maybe Apple. People have a lot of trust in Apple.
True.
Maybe Google. I mean, possibly, Amazon and Facebook, but not.
Man,
I mean, Amazon
really,
and Microsoft, but not Facebook.
I would say, really, if you want to see like if you were to put a list of corporations that will more than likely be able to establish something like that, I would say it would be Microsoft out of all of the because although Amazon has their footprint when it comes to consumerism, they're known they're most people who buy stuff from Amazon don't really take notice that Amazon does have a digital footprint. It's growing, but it's just not within the minds of the people off of there. So Microsoft is just the name in itself. We have, Microsoft versus, you think about Microsoft versus Apple. Apple, of course, they have their indoctrination methods, right? They have their loyal, their cult following. At the same time, Microsoft has, with the people, they've been able to establish themselves as more of a government entity in itself. So because of that, I think if they were to go about trying to establish something like that, they would probably get more traction, because the thing is too, you don't really hear too much like Microsoft being in trouble with stuff. Like Facebook over the past 5 years has had Zuckerberg. We didn't see the pictures of him looking crazy in court. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff. So it's like Facebook has been under fire for some time. When it comes to just their regulations and their practices, especially when it comes to their whole, you don't really hear like Microsoft being in any trouble about people being able to push their political agenda and then them not saying anything about it.
Yeah, because they already had their ass taxed. Yeah, I mean, with the whole what was the antitrust case back in like 2000, they basically want to break them up. Yeah, I mean, so they already had their, they're spanking for real, so they act right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's a mature company. Yeah, I mean, Facebook is an immature company. I mean, it's no way you can have a company that just came out like 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Much, 15, yeah.
Try to take over the world with their financial currency system. Like, you need a company that's established, that's been around for like 40 years. I mean, he got a wife and 2 kids. I mean, they got them things together. I mean, understand what's going on. I don't trust Facebook. You can't trust Facebook. You can't trust Zuckerberg. And, and that's just all it is to it. Like, maybe 10 more years. I mean, Facebook continue doing this thing, doing this slow grind. We see the more human side of Zuckerberg. I mean, he go in an interview and cry somewhere on television. I mean, humanize him.
I think the only thing that happened where Facebook is able to even think about making power moves like this is because the way the statistics goes is they say that I think it have 1 billion daily active users. So you think about, they have at this point what I think is 1/7 of the world on their platform every day. That is a little bit of, they're able to bargain something, right? Like with the, all over the world. So I think they try to statistically that may they feel like that gives them the edge to be able to move and shake the way they do. But then,
I
like you
always say
said,
about maybe 500,000, 500 million, because
500 million.
I mean the numbers say a billion, but I know damn near everybody got two accounts. I know
That's true.
everybody got two accounts.
Yeah, so that's true. That's true. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, I think that they are what you see what's happening is like we established with I guess the first article we was talking about how we are when it comes to cell phones, we've been beta testing these corporations, Facebook in particular this time, I think it's just like beta testing the idea of deregulated currency and then controlling, different countries and continents with this. They're just in the beta testing stage. And one of these companies, whether it be, you never know, it can be several companies, these big corporations coming together to establish something to create that reality for them. I think that's pretty much where it's going to go. My projection, my prophecy is that you're going to see while we in this tech cold war, it may go on for like another 20 years, and then when we probably like in our 80s or some shit, these corporations, you're going to see the headline: Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple become one entity.
Yeah.
Then we in some deep shit there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I hope to make it 80, but at the same time, I don't want to see any of those companies running anything beyond what they're doing right now. Like, I like them as companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I like them as an option. I mean, when it start becoming these things where there's no choice, and it's already kind of that way. Like I said earlier, like if you don't use technology, you kind of stuck in the 70s. But you got a choice on like what technology you use. When they start fully becoming like partners again, because right now they all in competition. When they start becoming partners again, and it's like, no matter what you go to, you're basically getting the same thing.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes a real problem because they all in agreement that they all going to screw us over.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not for that personally.
It's the same type of screwage, man.
Yeah. Like right now they competing for who can screw us over. So it's like, who can screw you over less is the likelihood of the company that you go to. But when they all in agreement, when everything is on the same level, I mean, and they all on the same plane, then it's basically, it's just, you get screwed every angle. So I ain't for that. Yeah. It is what it is. It's going to happen because, society just moves to its own doom. And I ain't mean to break down the, bring the vibe. I ain't mean to kill none of y'all vibes out there. But it is what it is. But anyway, yeah, man. I think this is the end of the show.
We can go forever about this joint.
Yeah, we can for real. I mean, but if y'all like the show, yeah, I mean, you know what to do. I haven't been really marketing it too much, but find us on all the platforms. You're gonna see a lot more of this stuff coming in. Facebook, Instagram. It sounds like I'm really far when I talk over here, but I talk over here is perfect. But I mean, we on Instagram, we on Facebook, we on Twitter. Lightly on Twitter, not too heavy on Twitter, a little bit on Twitter, but you can find all the podcasts on any one of your podcast streaming services. So if you got Spotify, iTunes, Google, trying to get Amazon, that's the hardest one to get because of Alexa, and Stitcher, and that's another one. You just Google us, you'll find us. Go to bohemia.media, you'll find us. We got more stuff coming, man. Anything you want to say, man? Say that.
Nah, man, just you hit the nail on the head. Y'all can follow us in all of the social media platforms, the podcast platforms. We're there. We will continue to be there, and just gonna keep the shit popping, man. But that's all I got on my end, Mike.
Yeah, man. Y'all take it easy out there. Be safe, and tune into the next one. Till then, it's
Michael Omari.
Yeah. Michael Omari. Yeah, I mean, I done basically gave out my whole government, right? Yeah, man, it is what it is. Miguel Penegdero. Let me, I'm out.
Peace.